Yes, Ms. Laws.
I first would like to thank Mr. Webb for coming all this way and waiting till the afternoon to come and point this out. I think, as you stated, this is a conversation that we've had multiple times and will continue to have as we think about the relationship between aquaculture and SAV and how potentially we might think about that relationship as SAV continues to expand and recover, and as aquaculture continues to expand, and look for more space. And so I think that it's very valuable to have people that are in the field and seeing this this relationship at work on a daily basis come and provide testimony. So I first want to say thank you very much to Mr. Webb for doing that. To my knowledge, there are some research projects going on specifically to look at the impacts of clam aquaculture on SAV. I know in the industry there are a lot of people who are also ground truthing and seeing that, who believe that that can be a beneficial relationship, so they don't have to be necessarily mutually exclusive. And I think that there's a lot of weight to that. Unfortunately, I think we have to wait for that research to take place. That's obviously not something that's going to change the way that we view this situation right now. But I do think it's important to point that out, and also to continue to look at that relationship and the benefits that both SAV, grass, and aquaculture provide, not just economically, but environmentally. There's also, certainly is known that the clam beds also provide a lot of environmental benefits in terms of habitat. So I really just wanted to state that, and to just say that I think it's a very important point to bring up, and I appreciate Mr. Webb taking an entire day to come over here and point that out to us.
Point is well taken. Further comments? Dr. Neal?
Well, not after that. I mean, I was going to kind of say the same kind of thing. This is kind of a good problem to have. We hope we see more of it. As grass, if we get the grass to recover, and we have the agriculture industry expanding, and we will have to come up with an issue of ways of dealing with this. But she said it better than I would, so no more comments.
Thank you, Doctor. Matters before the commission.
I'll move to support staff's decision.
Motion made by Dr. Neal to support staff's decisions. There a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Zijan. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Hope to see you. I likely won't see you, but hopefully someone will see you in the near future with great science, where we can render with as much information as possible.
I'll bring a clam net in here with me next time.
Sir?
I said I'll bring a clam net in here with me next time.
I've seen them, believe it or not. I've seen them in dumpsters. I've seen them alongside the road. I've seen
I might
them,
need
yeah.
help dragging in here. They're a little heavy.
I'm sorry?
I said I might need help dragging in here. They're a little heavy when they're loaded with grass. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. This is time for public comments. For anyone in the audience that has any comment on a matter that's not on the agenda that wishes to be heard. Andrew, are you getting up for public comments?
No.
Oh, good.
Just going over.
Good. Next item on the agenda is public hearing pertaining to blue crab fishery to establish management measures, including season, bushel limits, 2021 commercial crab fishery. Or Alexa, good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm sorry.
Now, this presentation will encompass items 14 through 17 on the agenda.
At the Commissioner's pleasure, I can take questions after each section.
You proceed, we'll ask them for sure if they come along. It'll be
All right.
good to go.
This is a proposal to amend Chapters 4 VAC 20-270 pertaining to blue crab fishery, 4 VAC 20-1140 prohibition of crab dredging in Virginia waters, 4 VAC 20-700 pertaining to crab pots, 4 VAC 20-1090 pertaining to licensing requirements and license fees, and Chapter 4 VAC 20-610 pertaining to commercial fishing and mandatory harvest reporting to establish management provisions for the July 5th, 2021 through July 4th, 2022 blue crab fisheries, to close the 2021-2022 winter commercial crab dredge fishing season, to require Terrapin Excluder devices in all recreational crab pots, and to establish mandatory online harvest reporting for blue crabs. As a refresher from our last meeting, I'm going to talk a little bit about the winter crab dredge survey results. The 2021 total abundance estimate for blue crabs in Chesapeake Bay was 281.6 million crabs, a decrease of 30% from 2020. Juvenile abundance was estimated at 85 million crabs, a decrease of 54% from 2020 and the lowest value out of the 32 years of the winter dredge survey. This was the main driver for the low total crab abundance. The current estimate of spawning age females is 158 million, 12% higher than the 2020 estimate and 36% higher than in the long term. It falls below the healthy target of 196 million crabs, but is well above the minimum threshold of 72.5 million crabs. And the exploitation rate, or the percent of females present in the bay that were removed by the bay-wide fisheries, was 19%, below the female-specific target of 28% and well below the overfishing threshold of 37%. Staff recommends status quo based on these results, which includes a November 30th season closure and further closure of the winter crab dredge season. CMAQ voted unanimously at their June meeting to recommend status quo, including November bushel limits equivalent to those in April through October, and a November 30th season closure. Although they did also request a fall meeting to discuss if the low juvenile abundances are supported by the VIMS summer trawl survey. Everyone's a little touchy about those low juvenile numbers, so we do want to see if that bears out in the summer trawls. And as of this time, no public comments have been received. I can take any questions.
Any questions by members of the commission for Alexa on these matters? I think that what we should do, by virtue of the court's decision as it relates to the winter crab dredge season, is we should have two separate motions as it relates to the two parts of item 1.
Well, I can go through we still have the regulations, and then you can either take the staff.
I'm sorry, I thought you were asking for, okay, continue on. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we do it the right way so we don't end up in front of a Norfolk judge again.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bowman.
Ma'am.
Just about that last slide, are you going to be reporting back on that summer trawl?
I can if the commission wishes. And if,
They do.
in the fall, we will have a CMAQ meeting. I'm sure they'll make a recommendation, and then staff will see if we support that recommendation. So we can, based on results from the trawl survey, we can come back to the commission. So going through Regulation 270, this is in Section 30 on page 3. Last year, we did extend the season into December 19th, so we had to extend the daily time limits to include December. We've now removed that since we won't have a December season at this point. We've also, throughout this regulation, so just about on every page, we've relabeled crab pots hard crab pots when crab pot is used to refer to a pot fishing for hard crabs, just to differentiate hard crab from peeler pot, hard crab pot from peeler pot from crab pot, which can encompass both of those. In Section 40, we advance the years from 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022. And we move the season closure back from December 19th to November 30th. Section 40, season limits, it'll be unlawful for any person knowingly to place, set, or fish or leave any hard crab pot from December 1st, 2021 through March 16th, 2022. And then any other lawful commercial gears from November 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. In Section 51, we're again advancing the years, 2020 to 2021, and closing the season and those bushel limits November 30th, 2021. And again, for the lower bushel limits in March, that'll be 2022. Section 55, the minimum size limits will be in effect through November 30th, the season closure. And then the winter dredge season was open from December 1st to March 31st historically. The Winter Crab Dredge Fishery Task Force report said that the dredge fishery harvested 32% of female crabs that were in the bay at the start of the season, and that 96% of their harvest typically was female. The winter dredge fishery was closed in 2008 as part of the 34% reduction effort and the new emphasis on conserving female crabs in the bay. So the Commission must vote to close the winter dredge season each year. A closure is recommended. And you can see that in Section 11.4 in Regulation 1140, advancing the years from 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022. So that is it for the annual management measures. I do have a staff recommendation at the end if you'd prefer to take it then, or you can take the question now.
Anybody have any questions at this point? You can continue.
Okay. Our next section is on Terrapin Excluder devices. This is regulations, Chapter 4, VAC 20-700 pertaining to crab pots, and 4 VAC 20-1090 pertain to licensing requirements and license fees. The Diamondback Terrapin is the only turtle in the U.S. to live in brackish waters. They were heavily harvested for food in the late 1880s to the early 1900s, and they're currently under pressure by encroachment of human development and activities on their habitat and nesting areas, which are often shallow salt marshes. They're listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, listed under Appendix 2 by CITES, and listed by the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources as a Tier 2 very high conservation need in their Virginia Wildlife Action Plan. The reason we're bringing this before you as part of our crab regulations is that terrapins are often caught and killed in crab pots set in their ideal habitat, the shallow salt marsh. They'll typically swim into the crab pot for food or shelter and then can't get back out and will drown. Also, in 2019, the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch downgraded Virginia blue crabs from a good alternative to an avoid. Seafood Watch is a tool for consumers, notably as a wallet-sized brochure and a smartphone app that rates seafood for sustainability by species, location, and gear type by stoplight colors, with best choice as green, good alternative as yellow, and avoid as red. The current best choice is Maryland trotline caught crabs. Crabs caught in pots from Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey are good alternatives. However, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas were all downgraded from good alternative to avoid. That's 8 of the 12 states currently ranked. Seafood Watch stated there are serious concerns about the catch of diamondback terrapins, which are considered endangered or a species of concern in every state where blue crabs are caught. While the conservation measures for blue crabs are rated moderately effective, management is rated ineffective overall because regulations to protect terrapins haven't been implemented. And Seafood Watch is used not only by consumers at the fish counters, but also by retailers choosing product. One Virginia processor reported that some retailers have stopped buying Virginia blue crabs from him because we are now in a void state. And I stated that Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey are currently good alternatives. And the question is, what sets them apart? They currently require Terrapin Excluder devices in some way, shape, or form. A Terrapin Excluder device, also known as a TED, also called a bycatch reduction device, or BIRD, is, as you see there, that orange piece of plastic It's fit to the funnel of a crab pot, and because of its height, the terrapins cannot make it through. They're excluded from the pot, whereas crabs can generally swim right through. Over a couple studies, pots with TEDs were shown to reduce terrapin catch by 77 to 82%, up to 96% for the larger female terrapins. Results on TED's effect on crab catch are more variable. Several studies in Chesapeake Bay showed no significant difference in crab catch when pots had TEDs in the funnels. Other studies suggested crab catch could be reduced anywhere from 12 to 50%. The variation amongst these studies may be due to the habitat pots were fished in or how the pots were fished. Some of the studies baited pots, some didn't bait pots. So TED regulations by state. In New York, TEDs are required in all pots, recreational and commercial, in certain named bodies of water. In New Jersey, TEDs are required in all pots in narrow bodies of water, so bodies of water which are less than 150 feet across at mean low water. In Delaware and Maryland, TEDs are required in all recreational crab pots. In Virginia, TEDs are incentivized for recreational 5-pot licenses. And North Carolina, as of this year, is requiring TEDs in all pots, recreational or commercial, within certain terrapin management areas. In 2016, the General Assembly of Virginia voted to incentivize the use of TEDs for the recreational 5-pot crab license. The 5-pot with turtle excluder license is $36, and the 5-pot without turtle excluder license is $46. However, if we look at 2019 licenses, of the 839 licenses sold, only 40% were with the cheaper license with turtle excluder. So 60% of licensees chose the more expensive license in order to avoid using the turtle excluders. And the Code of Virginia also allows for any individual to use 2 crab pots without having to purchase a license. So for the definitions, in Regulation 700, we've added crab pot, which means a rigid cube or rectangular shaped device made of wire or thread net used to catch crabs. And in the new Section 25, we stated, shall be unlawful for any person to place, set, or fish any crab pot for recreational purposes as described in the Code of Virginia 28.2-226.1 and 28.2-226.22 if that crab pot does not have a Terrapin Excluder device securely fastened inside each entrance funnel. The device shall be a rigid frame made of plastic or wire with a maximum internal height of 1 3/4 inches. I will note that each commissioner was provided with an updated copy of this regulation today. Some words of grammatical purposes were excluded, so that's been fixed in the copy you were provided, and it's on the slide. Some states regulate the grade wire, which is required for the TEDs to be rigid. We just say it shall be rigid, and the judgment may be made. And also, some states regulate the actual dimensions of the TED. So the commercially available TED right now is 1 3/4 inches high and 4 3/4 inches wide. Staff is recommending only defining the maximum internal height of 1 3/4 inches. That provides a little more flexibility for how these TEDs may be constructed. Certain states, including the South Carolina style TED, have a domed top to the TED. And then if people are making their own, which VIMS does have a brochure teaching people how to make their own, they don't have to match those dimensions exactly. But since it's the height of the TED which excludes the terrapins, we've regulated the maximum internal height. And I'll also note that the changes to Regulation 700 will be made effective January 1, 2022, which will give us time to do a lot of outreach. The people who fish crab pots recreationally aren't the type to be going to our website, to listening to results. So we're looking to do a lot of press, advertise on social media. We've secured some funding to purchase TEDs, which may be distributed to recreational crab potters. So a January 1st start date will give us 6 months to do a full court press. And then in order to change, to require the TEDs in all recreational crab pots, in Regulation 1090, we'll have to eliminate the license for up to 5 crab pots without a Terrapin Excluder device. If approved, we will only sell up to 5 crab pots with a Terrapin Excluder device for $36. And I can take any questions.
Any questions for Alexa? Great presentation, by the way. Thank you. Ms. Everett?
Not a question, but I think it's good that you're planning that delayed implementation and outreach. That's important.
Thank you.
Further questions?
No questions. I got plenty of
Okay.
comments
Well,
on why
let's-
this is
let's-
wrong.
To
Okay.
keep my mind intact, let's start with Mr. Tanker, then we'll roll this way.
For clarification, I think you may have mentioned before, how many recreational licenses do we hand out in a year's time?
Of the 5 pots in 2019, we sold 839.
839, so we do need some public outreach for that number of people.
Yes, because also on top of that, we'll have the people who fish 2 pots without a license, which is likely to be most homeowners with a dock in
Right.
Virginia, especially because if their crab pots are on their dock, they're most likely fishing in terrapin habitat.
Yeah.
2 pots per person, per
Right.
family member, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a good idea of how many 2-pot crabbers we have.
You'll never know.
Yeah,
No way.
I think it's a lot.
It's a lot.
it is a lot.
Okay, Mr. Zadrin, any comments? Dr. Neal, floor is yours.
All right. If this is about turtles, terrapins, then let's put excluder devices on crab pots, period. If it's about shallow water crab pots, let's put excluder devices on crab pots set in less than 10 feet of water or whatever. But what we're choosing to do is to discriminate against recreational crabbers. And I think it's mostly because it's the path of least resistance. We know that if we do this to the commercial crabbers, they're going to raise bloody hell, with reason. The recreational guys don't even know to resist, and so that's my job. So welcome to resistance. You could have waited another month, and I would be gone. But no, it's here this month. I've been recreational crab potting since I was in kindergarten. Just turned 58. That's 53 years of recreational crab pots. I do not know a Diamondback Terrapin if it bit me on the butt. I'm assuming there are these little guys keep popping up when I'm tarpon fishing, right over there amongst all the commercial crab pots. But in that 53 years, my total turtle catch of any species is 0. And so if you'd have done this regulation for 53 years on my crab pots, you would have saved 0 turtles. So for me to support this, you're going to have to make me buy into that. My 2 crab pots off my pier are more dangerous to the turtles than the 20 crab pots I'm looking at from my pier. The statement that most recreational crab pots are set in shallow water, okay, but that does not mean that most shallow water crab pots are recreational. Anybody that spends any time boating, any time fishing in shallow water, speckled trout, puppy drum, will tell you what the crab pots are, and Coast and Flats is covered with commercial crab pots. I know one crabber's got 250 pots there right now. But somehow those crab pots magically don't catch terrapins, but my 2 crab pots do. And so I've been on this commission here for 8 years. I've been a part of this commission since forever. Bill Pruitt was the one that put me on the FMAC to begin with, and I've been here ever since. And
One of the smartest moves he ever made.
yeah, you may not. So anyway, I've been here a freaking long time, and I know this is not true, but this commission has a reputation in the recreational community of being anti-recreational, pro-commercial, and I've heard more than once, VMRC will screw over the recreational fishermen every chance they get. And I spend many times at all these meetings I go to, and I always talk, no, that's not true. This is why this has been done. This is why this has been done. And then on my very last meeting here, of course, Commissioner Bowman says it may not be, but By law, I think it is.
No, it's not. You serve at the pleasure of the governor until relieved.
Okay. I've got this in front of me. And we have a proposed regulation that is imposing restrictions on recreational crabbers. So, and not only are we discriminating against recreational crabbers, we've got it in writing that we're doing it for the purpose of the commercial crabbing industry. We've got in the Monterey Bay's Aquarium, downgrade Virginia, and so this may affect the sale of our crabs. And so we're trying to impose regulations on the recreational fisheries so that the commercial crabbers can sell their catch better. And so we're saying we're discriminating against recreational crabbers in favor of commercial crabbers. And, and anyone who thinks that's okay is just missing the boat. And it shouldn't even work. And the only way this will work is if these Monterey Bay aquarium people are a bunch of idiots. I mean, what this regulation does is zero to change the interaction of Virginia's commercial crab fishery with the Diamondback Terrapin. So what you're doing, you're not doing anything at all with our commercial fishery. And so if I was on this board, I wouldn't change Virginia's assessment at all. And so, but they may be idiots and it may work, but it wouldn't be if I was on the board. And so, and I don't even know where this is coming from because it's not coming from the commercial fishermen. I wish Wayne was here, but he's not. But this has been before CMAQ twice already, and you've got that in writing too. That CMAQ declined to make a recommendation requiring TEDs on recreational crab pots. And so it's not the commercial guys that are trying to tell the recreational guys to take one on the chin for us. It's VMRC, I guess. But it's, and so anyway, this is something that I think should be sent back to CMAQ. Ask them, ask the commercial guys what, if anything, they want to do about it. The recreational guys will follow suit. It seems to me if you're going to say these shallow water pots, if you just want to do something, then stick them on the daggone peeler pots. They're trying to catch little crabs anyway. But here we're specifically trying to discriminate against one user group in favor of another user group, and we're making no bones about it. We're just sticking it here because we think we can, and that's just wrong. And so that's the end of my rant. You could have waited till next month, and you wouldn't have to listen to me.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna debate a little bit with you. I would say, the first party, my good friend, your statement was as far as discrimination is concerned. I would be willing to bet that those crab dredgers that were put out of business back in 2008, 9, whenever it was, would argue with you that we certainly weren't discriminating in their favor when that occurred. And I think we've been, at least I have tried to be, of balance as far as what we do and as far as what this agency does. You make some good points as far as as a matter of fact, I've asked counsel to look, I'm not going to put her on the spot, but under section 28.2203, it deals with the user group aspect, as it deals with fishery management plans. Thou shalt not discriminate. Well, what we're trying to determine is whether this is actually a discriminatory action or not. Dr. I tend to agree with you and you said it, if it was about the terrapins, okay, that's one thing. I think we need to consider the territory, the area in which these terrapins tend to move, under piers and around places like that. And I just think there may be more to it than meets the proverbial eye, other than us just shoving it down somebody's throat. So. But we're still well open for debate, and I see, let me get Mr. Zedrin and then Mr. Tankard if I could. Mr. Zedrin?
I've been crabbing all my life too, and both here and North Carolina. And we've had several pots out because, with our families, two per person per family kind of thing. And I've never seen a turtle in a crab pot. Where do you get this data from that these turtles are getting killed and everything?
There's several studies, both in Chesapeake Bay and in some of our neighboring states. Also discussion with some of VIM's Terrapin researchers, especially Dr. Havens, Kirk Havens, who works on the ghost fishing projects, collecting all the ghost crab pots. And I know their organization, they record what the contents of recovered pots, and they do find a lot of terrapins in those. I don't have numbers in front of me.
Thank you.
Mr. Tankard, please.
I think, on the Crab Management Advisory Committee, we talked about this a bit at some length, really. One of the things we do know, the commercial guys, because they are commercial, they're pulling the pots on a regular basis. They need to make money. They don't make any money unless they pull a pot. So we know that they're tending these pots on a basis in which the terrapins are less likely to be caught in them. But we know that recreational people have a tendency to, because they're not making any money, or maybe they forget.
Or go on vacation for a week.
Yes,
Or
or
two,
just forget
or
that the
three.
wind blew the pot off the end of the dock.
2.2.
Their pots all of a sudden can be out there without any harm to themselves, but are harming terrapins. And so this was an acknowledged point of view, and perhaps not a desire to eliminate the commercial waterman from the responsibility of the terrapin, but to acknowledge the fact that they tend their pots, and so there's less likelihood of them to have terrapin deaths in their pots. So that was one of the reasons that we, in my mind, we concluded that it was certainly more appropriate for recreational. And as you mentioned, recreational people have a tendency to set pots in shallower water in these zones like Johnson Cove. You saw these places where the terrapins are there in shallow water, and the recreational people can easily tend those things at any time, day or night.
Dr. Neal.
Yes, I have to disagree with what Tank just said. I mean, that most pots are not recreational. And I am up on the marshes, I'm in the eelgrass, and those pots are commercial pots. And also, in opposing his recreational versus commercial tendings, recreational fishermen are basically fishing their pots in the summertime, where the commercial crabbers are fishing their pots in a much longer season. And so if you're gonna start adding up numbers and percentages and who catches the most turtles, I'd be willing to bet you some dollars it's gonna be the commercial industry. They're gonna be catching more turtles than the recreational crop potters. And so again, if these pots and these turtles are in danger and we need to do something, let's do something. But to be trying to stick it to one industry, and particularly when we got it in writing, we're doing it because we're worried about the financial interest of the other industry, is just, and to your point, it is not the way this commission acts, and it is not. And so my whole point was the reputation that is out there in the recreational community is wrong. But here it is in black and white in this one issue, in this one instance, and this is just wrong. And so, this is something I think needs to be sent back to CMAQ and discussed, and if there needs to be something to be done, then fine, let's do it through the entire crabbing industry, recreational and commercial. If it doesn't, then make it go away.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, it's a motion, so send not anything else she's done, but this terrapin issue, to send this back to CMAQ.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Neal and seconded by Mr. Zedrin. Further discussion?
Commissioner? If I may add, we did speak to crab and terrapin experts at VIMS, Randy Chambers, Kirk Havens, and Ron Lipschus, and they all agree that it is a predominantly recreational issue.
And I'll argue
It is
with
less
them
with the
too.
commercial.
Yeah, and I will flat argue with them also.
Let's,
Mr. Commissioner,
yes,
can we vote without a quorum?
we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 9.
Oh, okay,
I'll be voting,
okay.
yeah. Don't give me a heart attack. This is one of those situations where I can see both sides of it. I understand. I'm really not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Go back to CMAC, and I want exactly the folks that you just mentioned, please, and let's get this thing on CMAC or sooner than later if we can. I don't know when the next planned meeting is, but let's move it and let's get the experts that can satisfy. You've heard today Dr. Neal's concerns. If you haven't heard it, in all due respect, listen to the recording as to what the issues are. Listen to what the issues are, and let's try to address every one of those issues that Dr. Neal has brought up from a perspective of fundamental fairness to his argument. The other thing I would like to do is make sure that this under 28.2203 and checking with Kelsey is not, as Dr. Neal said, under the Code of Virginia, a discriminatory action pursuant to the fishery management plans. We'll get all that stuff taken care of before we come back to this commission with this recommendation, and have a good solid case, more so than you believe that you have now. And I'm not in any way demeaning staff or anything else if the presentation was provided, but any more VIMs, I want anybody and everybody that can get in there. And if you get somebody from Sea-Watch to come and explain their rationale as to why they've done now this matter, I'd like them to be there. I'd like everybody that could possibly be there to give good scientific advice, because as I've said before, when I first came here, the first meeting, July of 2006, I said decisions by me will be made based on scientific data and not knee-jerk, anecdotal, or what might be. So if we get the best science available, we'll get in there, because I think it's something that really, honestly, needs to be looked at.
We'll work at getting the best science available and getting
Yes,
it back
sir.
to CMAC as soon as we can.
Yeah, did you have another comment, or?
No, just the next agenda item for blue crabs.
Oh, cool.
Just transitioning smoothly.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Neal. Thanks for everybody for the discussion. I
think it's a much more complex issue than we realize at the end of the day.
Yep.
I'll look forward to hearing more from VIMs on it. So.
And, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Kelsey.
Were we just talking about the Terrapin?
That's all. We haven't moved it. We haven't done anything else, and I've been jawing in your ear on over 203. That's my fault. Okay. All right.
Just checking.
Now, we're clear on the TED. Great. Going back to CMAC, getting this thing together as soon as we can, get back, and we'll do that as soon as possible.
Yes, sir.
That's good. Okay, where are we now?
Transitioning to the next item, this is a public hearing for Chapter 610 pertaining to commercial fishing and mandatory harvest reporting. This is very similar to what the commission approved last year for oysters. If these regulatory amendments are approved, this would transition blue crab harvest and reporting from paper reports over to our digital system. This digital system is about 78% faster for reporting. As we talked a little bit earlier about waiting for those summer trawl surveys results to come back from VIMS to make any management decisions, we really don't have great harvest information for what's being caught in the blue crab fishery until really late in the year. For us to have any meaningful harvest from the spring, we really have to wait till October, November, sometime in there to be able to use that. And by that time, it's too late to make any decisions later on in the season. So transitioning to an online system really gives us more accurate, more timely harvest information. Currently, about 92% of the harvest is still reported on paper reports. So it will make a lot of information more available to managers as it comes through. This has been brought to 4 different CMAC meetings and been met with a lot of positive results. We do have people on the CMAC who have helped develop this online system, and we have reached out to them for any feedback for improving this system as we go along. This regulation will not be effective till January 1st, 2022. That essentially gives us with the March opening, an 8-month window to really do outreach and education. We will target everyone who has a crab pot license. We will make sure they're aware of these regulatory changes. And because we won't be under COVID-19 restrictions, we'll actually be allowed to have people here at the office to help them through that online process. So very minimum changes to be able to do this. Section 20, we define what a blue crab is so that everyone knows what they're supposed to be reporting. And we piggyback on Section 60, where we already talk about the online reporting of oysters and add blue crabs in there as well. Any questions from the commission about transitioning to online reporting?
recommendation?
So we have a few different staff recommendations, one of which has already been addressed. So for one, staff recommends the commission approve amendments, Chapter 4 VAC 20-270 pertain to blue crab fishery, and 4 VAC 20-1140 prohibition of crab dredging in Virginia waters to establish management provisions for the July 5th, 2021 through July 4th, 2020 blue crab fisheries, and to close the 2021-2022 winter commercial crab dredge fishing season. I understand these will be taken separately. Recommendation 2 was for the to require Terrapin Excluder devices. And then recommendation 3, staff recommends the commission approve amendments, Chapter 4 VAC 20-610, pertain to commercial fishing and mandatory harvest reporting to establish mandatory online harvest reporting for blue crabs.
Any questions? All right. What I think we need to do is take these, I wish it had been broken out a little bit.
You want to do the winter dredge?
I do. That's the first one. I want a specific motion as it relates to the closure of the winter dredge fishery.
I move to close the 21-22 winter dredge commercial crab fishing season.
I second that.
Motion made by Mr. Tankard to close the winter crab dredge fishery 2021-2022, seconded by Mr. Zedrin. Further discussion on that specific motion. Chair will call the roll. Ms. Everett?
Aye.
Mr. Tankard?
Aye.
Mr. Zedrin?
Aye.
Dr. Neal?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Recorded vote. Please make sure it's noted in the record as a recorded vote. Okay, what's next?
Regulation 270 to establish management provisions for the July 5th, 2021 through July 4th, 2022 blue crab fisheries.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Motion made by Mr. Tankard to approve staff recommendations. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Zedrin. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, Alexa.
Staff recommends commission approve amendments, Chapter 4 VAC 20-610 pertain to commercial fishing and mandatory harvest reporting to establish mandatory online harvest reporting for blue crabs.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Motion made by Mr. Tankard to approve staff recommendations. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Everett. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Unless I have mistaken, is there anything else to come before the commission? Well, I'll say this just in case it happens or doesn't happen. As the law of Virginia is very specific, Dr. Neal, as it relates to appointments. You serve until your replacement is named by the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Just to let you know that, to make sure, unless you hear otherwise, we'll see you in July. Otherwise, I'll let you know.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else to come before this body? I thank everybody for their participation, their patience, their cooperation, and their breadth of knowledge. Meeting adjourned.
And